Hey, what's up, guys? So we're doing this Aileen bust today, and we're going to start with just the head, and then we'll break it down just like I did the bust. We'll break it down just like I did the last bust. So this time I actually captured the eye painting, and I started off with a mixture of light flesh and just a touch of off-white. I really wanted her eyes to stick out, so we added a little bit of white in there. So now I've used Joe Sanyo. It's a new paint that I've been trying out, and I really like it for its ability to thin down. So my friend hooked me up with a limited palette of colors. I used plum pink, thinned down like tinted water, and then I put that in the corner of her eyes to give that a little bit of life to them. And I mixed it with a little bit of the white, and then went back over the middle, making sure I had a nice, good, solid base coat going. And as you see, I put a little bit of Andrea color number 4 from their green set. And I just like the idea of green eyes. And there's kind of a theme you guys will see as I go through this bust. I use a lot of purples, reds, and greens. It kind of became like my go-to colors throughout the whole thing. I'm kind of you can see how thin it is. I pulled it out of frame there for a second, but it's not running everywhere. You want to have a lot of control with this so it's not pooling out. And I'll go on real light and kind of outline it first, and then I'll go in and start doing color. I'll do the left eye first because it's the hardest eye for me to do, and if it's easier for me to attempt to match up the right eye, because the right eye is way easier to paint. And it's a back and forth process. You're trying to match them up. I added a touch of white to try to bring them up a little bit, because if you look at how any artist does eyes, they you want to get all that the dark to light in first before you start putting in black. Then I used a flesh tone, color number 5, or I'm sorry, I used that basic flesh from Vallejo, and I undercut the eye. So that way we go ahead and have that lower eyelid painted in. Then I mix in a drop of black into the green, and we'll just try to outline that as best as possible. That way we have nice separation between our mid, our highlight, and the area around the iris. This is going to make it stick out a lot more and give you more definition and a sharper eye. I just kind of use a stippling motion to bring up those highlights a little bit more. Next, I take black and I go ahead and I start from the inside of the nose, and I kind of go ahead and outline it lightly before I pull down harder with paint. You don't want to use a tiny brush for this. You want to use a brush with some body to it so it stays wet and has a very sharp tip. And see how the paint just pulls right down the line? It's okay if you don't get it the first time, you can always go back over it. Then I kind of start in the middle of the line, and I'll use that same stippling motion with the black to create the retina of the iris. Then you want to kind of tidy it up a little bit. And you also want to use that off-white and basic flesh to create a reflection. And it's basically it's an eye light. So you pick where you want your light to hit in the eye, and you just kind of tap it in. It might take you a couple tries. Like, I don't go in hard with paint here. I just use a very light stippling motion, so we're trying to be very careful not to cover up the work we've already done. But it's an old trick that, you know, illustrators and painters have used for years, and of course it's the same thing. Like when we're filming people or taking a photograph, we're going to look for that that eye light to really make the eye stand out and give a source of where the light's coming from. And I use a little darker flesh tone, just mix in with a little bit of black, and just kind of go along the outer rim of where those bottom eyelashes would hit. We won't really do that much for male figures, so we use more of a brown, but for females we want to give them the look of eyelashes. Okay, so for her starting her flesh, we're going to block in the eyes. Now if I was to use an airbrush on her, which I almost did, I would do the eyes last, but I really wanted to focus on the eyes. It's really the most important part of a bust. So we went ahead and did those. And now we're going to take some Vallejo Red Beige. Now, if you guys have ever watched Painting Buddha, the videos, they have that wonderful Shield Maiden tutorial. And I saw Ben comments using the Red Beige from Vallejo on her, and I just really liked what he did there. I also wanted to mixed in a little bit of that Plum Pear from Joe Sanyo, and just a touch of black to kind of desaturate my first few layers. It's something that I've been wanting to play with, and playing with different types of saturation or desaturation. So we're going to go ahead and base coat her with this first mix, and then we'll go from there. But before we go all over the whole face, I notice that I focus around just the eyes. I want to, all that gets blocked in here. So once I had all that blocked in, I went ahead and I increased the amount of the plum pink. I'm sorry, I called it plum pear earlier, but it's plum pink. And I used that just to we're going to go ahead and start giving life to the figure without throwing in any, crazy reds or anything like that. We want really soft transitions. So I pulled up on Pinterest on my computer monitor to my right, just a bunch of different images of female painted oil paintings and some illustrations and things like that, and I kind of stuck along with that. So above the eye, we added plum pear, and then I added sunny skin tone to the base color, and we start adding these first highlights. And the key to doing this is you have to mix it in with your base color and then slowly increase the amount of sunny skin tone to that until you're using just pure sunny skin tone. But it's all about slowly building up your layers. You're gonna create smoother transitions. Okay, for the lips, I just went with straight plum pink from Joe Senio. Remember, lip skin is always different than skin. So that's kind of the rule of thumb here. You can add a little bit of browns in there if you want. later on I'll show you guys what I do with inks to punch in more color, but I just wanted to start with a natural kind of look of the lips. She's a fantasy figure. She's on a quest, and so I didn't think she'd have like crazy amounts of makeup on, because she's kind of a warrior, and we want to keep her as natural looking as possible. And we add in that basic flesh again, and we increase our highlights. So I mix that in with the pink plum, or the plum pink, and then I'll go to straight basic flesh, and I'm going to kind of do like I did with the German bust, where we're kind of sketching out our top highlights. You can see right now that absolutely nothing is blended. There's still a lot of strangulation and a few brush strokes here and there, and a few hard edges, but we smoothed all that out. The reason I did this is because I'm trying to, as you know, females are very hard. They're not, you don't want the hardness looking that we usually do, the hard contrast that we do on male figures. You really want to push for very, very soft transitions. And so I'm kind of picking out, you know, places on the face that I feel like light's hitting from the zenithal process. I'll go back after I sketch out these highlights. The key to blending these is you keep that red beige on your palette. You want to keep that, or put down fresh, you know, red beige if you need to, but that's our blending color. It's the base color that we started with, and so we use that color very, very, very thin. If you need to hold the pigments together, use Glaze Medium. So you can mix a drop of that in there until you get a nice kind of transparent paint flow going, and work along the lines of the face that you've created. And you can see that it takes a few layers because we're working so thin, but it's a process. You always have to keep that in mind. They're not going to look stellar right from the get-go. It's a process of layering. So I've put down some Joseño it's hard to say, dioxazine purple, and this is kind of going to be my initial shadow color, and I'm outlining her eyelids, and we're going to outline her nose a little bit and create the initial bits of separation and shadow. Here I mix that purple in with the keep wanting to say Roja, red beige, and go down to the neck, and you can see it's kind of this grayish flesh tone. I thought that was really cool. I don't know, it was working for me. It's like it's a shadow with a temperature. And so once I was kind of playing with that, I just rolled with it. Sometimes, I mean, it's never an exact science. A lot of this is playing around and figuring out as you go. You're gonna see me increasing the highlights. You know, once again, I can't say it enough. If I say it every video, then I'm not gonna apologize. It's important. Exaggerate your highs. Be subtle with your blending. That's advice given to me from incredible painters, and really taking that and trying to keep that in mind every time I paint a figure. Some people will call it unrealistic. But if you look at any paintings throughout time after the Baroque period, then you're going to see that, you know, skin tones are light, especially on females, and you're always going to have paler skin on a female than you would a male, and that includes whether you're doing, I think, in my opinion, any flesh tone. Okay, then I take that same shadow color, I thin it out a little bit more, and start kind of filling in the shades and where I want shadows to be. And we're gonna do some, it's gonna look, you know, like what the crap is Ian thinking, you know, but trust me, it all smooths out. Okay, so now we're going to start adding life to her, and we're going to pull all this together. And I used Reaper's Blood Red, and once again, thinned way down with a medium glaze. Okay, so we want to pull this together. So I got some red beige from Vallejo, and I used Naples yellow from Joe Sanyo, and this is paint that is thinned down like tinted water. Okay, these are something new that I've been trying. I've been playing with a little bit here and there, and they're inks from Liquitex. And I just got the primary colors to start out with, and then I got transparent browns for leathers and stuff. And I don't put a lot of this down. You really have to thin this stuff out. Don't go hard with the inks because they're crazy pungent. So unless you're going for extreme saturation, I I would not thin them down and learn their consistency a little bit. They behave really well with all the water-based paints, and these themselves are water-based acrylic inks. So I thought they would work great, and they have been. So I'm stoked on using them. Big shout out to Scott Primo for, you know, suggesting inks to me. And we're just going to kind of do the same thing that we did before, and really push in. I mean, you can see that first brush stroke goes down, it's like bam, red. Okay, then I take the yellow ink, mix it with blue, and I make a kind of a green hue, and I mix that in with the base flesh. So with a male figure, we want to use like a turquoise or a neutral tone like a gray or something like that. With a female, we don't want a female to have a 5 o'clock shadows. I mean, first, if you're somewhere, some guys are into it, but for the most part, we want to use, we don't want to give them a scruffy 5 o'clock shadow. So what I've learned that traditional painters do is they'll add in green hues to the lower portions of the face on a female, and what that does is it pushes all the reds and purples that were used in the face. So it's an interesting little trick, and I just mixed it. First I put on straight green to kind of give myself an idea, and then I went back over with that Naples yellow and red beige and tidied it all up. And once again, we kind of go back with those highlight colors, that Naples yellow and red beige, and change its variations. And anything that I feel like is lost, then I go back and touch on it. These acrylic paints will fade if you'll paint something straight dead white, and then walk off and have lunch, or wait till the next day and you come back and it's just not punching like it was. So once again, exaggerate your highs and be subtle with your blending. And here's like a real-time look at where I was in the process. Now, I did spend 2 days painting this face, so we come back to it all. Okay, so I went back to the inks here and I mixed in the blue with the red and just a touch of that dioxazine purple. And now I'm increasing the shadows. I'm trying to be extremely subtle with everything that I'm doing, and outlining like everything, because we want everything, like especially like the eyebrows. You see me pulling a line down through, and increasing the shadows inside the nose, right where the eyes meet the bridge of the nose. We also give her a little bit of shadow underneath that eye fold there. And once again, I'm keeping that base flesh color. And when need be, when I start to see the areas start to dry and everything's starting to take shape, you can really start to see where it needs to be smoothed out. And so we're going to kind of call this the perk up phase. So we're trying to get everything locked in together and create smoother smooth out the transitions. And once again, you know, I'm learning this stuff too, so you're gonna see a lot of going back and forth. You're like, Ian, you already did that part. Well, that's because, you know, maybe we're seeing something change, you know, so we kind of have to do this part on the fly. It's not calculated, right? I really wanted to. I went ahead and did. I went ahead and started doing the hair with a mix of brown number 1, just a touch of brown number 1 with brown number 5 from the Andrea Brown set. The reason being is I wanted to create this kind of auburn look that would transition to like a blondish highlights. So it'd be like this dark brown that builds up to brighter highlights. But I needed to see how the face looks against the skin, and also I want to be able to push the shadows into where the hair is covering the face. So this gives me a good place to start, and I know where to add those darker flush tones. Since I pictured this figure, I wanted her to have freckles. Like I was like, she has to have like the little bridge of freckles going across her nose. And so this was a very, I thought about this very much. So I mixed a red ink with brown number 4 from the brown set, and then also the brown that I used for the hair. So we kind of have like this nice little harmony going with all the colors that we're using so far. And the color number 4 is kind of this neutral color. So that's what I used, and I just went with the tip of the brush and just kind of speckled on each freckle. And it's not perfect, but you know, we got a nice thing going. So I'm gonna go back to that once again, that Naples yellow and red beige, and kind of blend them back in for the ones that are too strong. And like I said earlier, with the hair, all I did was stay within that same brown, kind of the reddish brown, and I continually added sunny skin tone. And you'll see how I kind of follow the sculpt and pick out where the light is hitting. So I can look at the figure from above at 12 o'clock high, and we see where the light is hitting onto the hair, and you kind of just follow along accordingly to the sculpt. once I had it kind of close to where I wanted her, I went ahead and used a really thin brown number 5 and kind of pushed that into the shadows. Then using the Liquitex ink transparent burnt sienna, I mixed that with that brown number 5, really thin, and then kind of glaze over all of the hair. Okay, and that was the first 2 days of painting this bust. I really hope this video has helped you guys, and I'm looking forward to sharing the rest of the process with you. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.